the reality is sales is not what sales used to be. It's more of a consulting, right? Like it's more about the people in the process and less about the tech. You may price a job for 2 years. I guess kind of the value piece of this, right? Like you may price a job for 2 years just for the chance to get the job because that client's actually having 2 other GCs price the same work. I would rather have a much more thoughtful conversation on the front end with my own data and option engineer some things based on their design intent in the first meeting to give them more to chew on. That's not like, well, hey, thanks for pricing it. We're going to put pencils down because we're going to wait for pricing and labor to go down. Like, you guys tell me, when has that happened? Right? That's what everyone's thinking. It's like, look, here's a VE list. We could strip everything out of this job that you want and we can build this for you. That's not my job anymore. Like, that's a Band-Aid. So we have to have more thoughtful conversations in pre-con. No one looks at pre-con and says, yeah, pre-con, sexy. Like, it's numbers and it's like quantities and prices and costs, right? That then shape a narrative. What I want, I get excited because I want people to not have to do this stuff over the weekends, right? Like, I was going back and forth to Arkansas. Like, I was going for a week at a time when I was on my first job. I'm not saying we don't have to do those things, but like, we prioritize so much work. We spend 40, 60 hours a week doing work things when in reality we're doing that. You either live to work or you work to live, right? Yeah. And like, you have to, there's a tension between those. And so like, we have to find the place that increases quality of life in both spaces.
Okay. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode. Are you interested in finding out how companies scale past the $10 million ARR ceiling? This episode is one of the number of episodes forming part of our new go-to-market guide, which reveals how industry leaders scaled past the stubborn $10 million ARR mark using strategies specifically designed for AEC. Discover the proven land and expand blueprint, pricing models at work, and real case studies from companies with significant exits. To get your copy, visit www.bricks-bytes.com/GTM. All right, Trey, thank you so much for joining us. We're just having a great chat because for the people listening, I suggest you take a look on video because Trey has created one of the most awesome backgrounds you have seen on Bricks and Bytes before. All handmade by himself, I will say.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah.
And I think maybe we'll get into that because you're a little bit about your background when you tell us how you managed to get there. All right, Trey. So can you just tell us a little bit about your, like, where you are now and how you got there? You have quite a broad experience. Let's dive in.
Sure. Yeah. So right now I'm our director of sales at Edify. Just lead our sales efforts here. And I started in construction. I got a building science degree and then went to work for a GC here in Tennessee. And mostly doing BIM and project engineer work and some pre-con things as well, just supporting pre-con workflows, and then focus on the tech as well. So I started in construction doing those things. I was on, a large hard bid job when I started out that grew my my skin quite a bit. So I started doing that on that first job, and then kind of had some other jobs we worked on doing a variety of different things because we wore a lot of hats. But
what was the most difficult at that time, like from your point of view? Like what was tough?
Yeah, so I think that the toughest thing is because I was doing BIM The toughest thing was like, it's kind of in its infancy stages at that point in time, and it's evolved quite a bit here. I think other countries have more standards around BIM now, or they even more so even the U.S. But um, getting trade partners behind we're going to model. We need to model our systems, and we need to put this in a model and bring it all together and coordinate. Like when you're doing a 800,000 square foot hospital, there's all kinds of requirements for med gas. You got patient lift systems going through the ceiling. You've got all this big duct work. And so there's just constant RFIs going back and forth to the design team and the engineers. And so for me, like it was more, the biggest challenge is getting trade partners kind of aligned around like, we have to do this virtually first, because if we don't, it's going to be very, very costly for us to change this stuff out after it's installed.
So you've always been advocating.
I've always been advocating for tech and construction, but primarily just to solve, like, as the foundation of solving problems, right? Like, I like to tinker, and I want to make sure that we have objectives and we're trying to solve those things.
Can you tell us about your journey into construction tech? Then you had a really cool story about how you wrote a user guide for the company.
Yeah, for sure. So we, on this big hospital job, we were printing a lot of drawings, and we're trying to look for different solutions just to keep our, A, to reduce printing costs, but B, to kind of make it easier to version the drawings, because we were actually taping RFIs and things on the back of the drawings in a plan room inside the job trailer. And so I had seen PlanGrid previously. It wasn't quite far enough along at the time, but then I looked at it again. I was like, guys, this could be the solution for us and cut costs very quickly. And so we bit the bullet. We actually bought the licenses we need for PlanGrid at the time. We implemented it, got all the drawings in there, and I kind of just set that up for that project team. We had probably 20 superintendents, so you can imagine like everyone's opinions and everyone kind of trying to culminate their head knowledge and like bring it together. So PlanGrid allowed us to get all the stuff digitized, version control. You can mark up the drawings, punch list, that kind of thing. But through this process, I was taking it step by step. I wrote a user guide for PlanGrid for my company, and then I just shared that with our IT folks. We kind of just disseminated that to the company as we started growing more with PlanGrid. And I decided to share that with the PlanGrid folks. Said, hey, like, help articles are great, but here's something I wrote. If you guys want to use this or leverage this, for other use cases, feel free. Well, then Tracy turned around and reached out. She said, I'm looking over my engineer's shoulders right now. This thing is beautiful. Do you want to come work at PlanGrid? And I said, I've never thought about that. So
that's such a bold thing, is it, from like a founder back then to be like, come work for me?
Yeah.
They do it all the time.
Well,
if they see something.
I grew up, and my thought of work, like once I got out of school, was like, you go get a 8 to 5 job, right? And you're a career company person for like 30 years, because like our older generations, that's what they did.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really have any kind of radar for like, I was like, I would never do something like that. When it happened, I had some tough conversations. I say tough, just interesting conversations. And I decided to bite the bullet. We also had our first child. So jumping to a startup after you have your first child seems quite a bit risky.
Yeah.
I thought I was more risk averse than that. Apparently I'm not. He was like 3 months old. And then, I went out and said, hey, I'm going to go, give my notice. I'm going to go do this thing. And that's kind of what got me. I actually started as a CSM, not as a salesperson, as a customer success manager at PlanGrid. We had a comp plan. We were focused on expanding customers who have already signed, not new customers. So it was kind of like a tiptoe into sales a little bit, because there is some selling. Because I had written this user guide, like there was no part of PlanGrid I couldn't show you and say, hey, what if you use this? What if you use this? How would that look in your business, right? And so I got to take that and spin that into I was drinking from a fire hose when I joined PlanGrid, and kind of spin that into like working with these customers across pretty much everyone east of the Mississippi, whoever we had as customers, and help those folks expand more PlanGrid into their business. We're just reducing paper at this point, right? It's digitizing, it's adding punch lists, things like that. But like, it's solving real problems. And again, to the point of like, I had a superintendent when I was in construction. Like, he was like 30 years tenured at the time. You couldn't take an iPad or PlanGrid out of his hand, right? And so when there's something that's that powerful, that intuitive, and you go then now represent that thing, like the impact you can have is tremendous. And so that's kind of how I got into sales, doing CS, getting into the CS world. But there came a point in time at PlanGrid's history where we restructured, and I was moved into a RSM role, which is just regional sales manager role, and we had territories and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of got pushed into sales. But the reality is I was kind of selling anyways.
So it was more about the regional sales management was more about new business, because you mentioned earlier that the CSM role is more about expanding your current existing customers. Yeah,
that's correct. No, we structured things a little bit differently after that too. It's like even an RSM you can land and then expand. You can expand the initial customer too. So we've restructured a little bit, which I think is kind of the motion going forward from now too. But there were so many point solutions out back then, right? I think our industry is shifting. Like, you had PlanGrid, FieldLens, you had all these other point solutions that were being used, like Build and Connected, right? And then all of a sudden, fast forward a few years, you have like a Procore. It's a platform, right? I think the pendulum is swinging back in the middle because there's pros and cons to both, right? So like, if an average adult can make 35,000 decisions a day, both unconscious and conscious, right? So if I give you 20 point solutions and say, go use them, I'm eating so much of your bandwidth and decision making. A platform kind of solves for that, but the problem is a platform is it's jack of all trades, master of none. But if I can swing the pendulum back to this integrated solution and say, look, the best of both worlds is you have 4 parts of your business. You have pre-construction, you have operations, accounting, and say executives, or like pick something else. What if you had a solution for each of those that integrated and gave you the data points you needed, right? And I had this conversation with a gentleman when I was at a different company. He called me 2 weeks later. He's like, man, I was driving down the road. What you said made a lot of sense. And I was like, great. Where do you want to take the conversation from here, right? And I think what I'm saying in this is like, all these companies have their strategies and go-to-market approaches, things like that. But the reality is, sales is not what sales used to be. It's more of a consulting, right? Like it's more about the people in the process and less about the tech, right? And so that's what got me into sales. And part of it too is like I've been sold to. I've been in the industry. I've been sold to. I can tell you sometimes it sucks. Like just the way it's presented, right? Like I think you say like, just throw up everything that I'm trying to show you here. That doesn't solve my problems. Or you see a marketing video, you're like, I'm interested. You go to a website and the marketing video is like all these obscure shapes, but it's nothing about the product. Okay, I'm gonna go away from this.
Martin is gonna like bite the bait right now. Yeah, if you start saying stuff like that.
I think you have. My feeling is that you have very natural inclination towards like helping people to understand things, and through this process you sell it. That's my feeling about you.
That's accurate. That's very accurate. Yes. Yeah,
and that's why you piece. Yes, exactly. So to you it feels natural, but I can assure you that that's not what 90% of salespeople are doing.
Trey, what was some of the? We maybe get onto that earlier, but I think just on the PlanGrid piece, what were some of the major inflection points, and then how did the role with major successes, should we say, and how did the role at Edify come around?
Yeah, so I think for PlanGrid, the inflection points, we did some things very different in some cases. Like I co-sold with a colleague I used to work with in the industry for like 2 years, which is like a no-no in sales. But we proved that the model works. Like we hit our numbers every year or exceeded them. And so I think some of my points of inflection are more like going against the grain of typical sales mentality of like, well, if you have 5 salespeople, you need to send them to 5 locations. Well, if you have 5 salespeople and 2 of them aren't great at selling or they have a different skill set, what if you pair them with someone else, right? And then you could still hit those numbers, right? It's just thinking creatively on how you sell. And so for me, the point of inflection was like when I jumped into the CS role, it was very much I had a number, but I started to realize sales is more of a team sport. You can make it competitive for sure. I get it, right? But like, it's not, none of this is done independently of other people. You're always winning as a team. And so to me, that's what I learned a lot at PlanGrid. Like we had accounting partners, we had sales partners, we had CS partners, we had all kinds of people who partnered with us, to where the only reason we were successful is because we worked together. And everyone kind of had their, the thing that they did, right? So I think you get to a place where you're getting more like, we're being less general in our hiring and more specific, right? And as we grew, we were more specified in how we hired folks. But I will say this, there are times where I feel like a Swiss Army knife. Like, I can do CS, I can do sales, I do different things. And the thing is, if you can't, if you ask for support on something, if I ask for something and you can't provide that, but I know the output is what we're going to need to be, I will find a way to get to that point. If I have to go learn JSON or some other thing to execute, I will go do the thing.
Yeah.
Because we have to get to that point.
Sounds like it. How did the role at Edify come around?
Yeah.
So I was actually at a company. So after I left construction, I went construction, PlanGrid, Autodesk, back to construction, and then I went to a company called Rumbix for a year, and then I was at Fulcrum for a year. I saw Dustin post something on LinkedIn, and I actually met Dustin when I was using Building Connected back in the industry, and we crossed paths even through acquisition. And I reached out to him on LinkedIn. I said, Dustin, I saw your post, man. I'm curious what you're baking here, because I have some thoughts on this. Because when I was in the industry the second time, I was looking at solutions like HighPar. Like, how do we have more thoughtful solutions with clients on the front end so we don't have to spend 2 years in pre-con? And what are the processes and tools that has to support that, right? So I reached out to Dustin and I said, I want to see what you're building. And so we set up a meeting, and then my response after he showed me Edify, and I was like, Dustin, it's not a matter of if, but when, but I'm going to come sell that solution for you.
Nice.
Okay. So what do you sell? What does Edify do that you sell?
And by the way, did Dustin say yes first time? Was it like yeah, man, come on?
He had to do some background checks. Everybody. I'd give my referrals, but fortunately, at least I don't think I've burned any bridges for the most part. So
no, I think it's an important point to highlight, because we all know Dustin, right, in the ecosystem, and he's gonna have extremely high standards. So the fact that you have joined him obviously says a lot about you, Trey. So I just wanted to get that out.
Thanks, Owen. Yeah, I mean, Dustin's great. He's a very different leader than I've ever worked for. Just his approach to people as people first, which has been I look at sales, and sales is much more qualitative to me than quantitative. The numbers take care of themselves if you focus on the quality. And some folks get in the weeds on KPIs and metrics. And it's like, hey guys, look, I get you. Like, we have to have KPIs and performance metrics, all these things, but let's look at a top level. Like, are we helping, again, coming from the buying side and using side, like, are we helping clients solve problems? Let's start there and then work from there. Because otherwise it's going to be a pretty short conversation. Yeah. But yeah, Dustin's been great. Great to work with.
Okay.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
There was a question there.
What is Edify and what do you sell?
How do you sell it?
Yeah. All right.
That's why we're here.
Edify. Yeah. So Edify is a pre-construction cloud solution. And I say pre-con in the sense of, a lot of folks look at pre-cons like, well, we have estimators and we have BD folks, we have this and this. No, stop. Like, pre-con needs a solution, because when I left the industry, the first time and came back, clients got much more sophisticated. They're like, well, we want to see cost per X this time, or cost per this. And well, this cost is too high, or this is too low. It's like, guys, come on. Like, we're building a box with windows and doors, and but clients are they just got more sophisticated, right? So it's a cloud pre-con solution that covers conceptual estimating through detailed cost estimating. It actually handles GCs and GRs, very thorough GCs, GRs that you can link to the estimate. as well as like you might tie staff to a schedule, like a simple schedule. And beyond that, it's like the estimate's built, it's tied to bid package. I then can actually do an export, and I can create all of my scope sheets, my buy sheets to cover everything through buyout even. So anything like going into your project management or accounting solution, right? Like Edify covers that. The only thing that we're not doing is quantity takeoff right now. But we want to integrate with those solutions. Again, go back to this integration thing. Like there's counting the widgets, and everything else is like telling the story. Edify wants to tell the story so you can more quickly get a shovel in the ground. You may price a job for 2 years. I guess it's kind of the value piece of this, right? Like you may price a job for 2 years just for the chance to get the job, because that client's actually having 2 other GCs price the same work. I would rather have a much more thoughtful conversation on the front end with my own data and option engineer some things based on their design intent in the first meeting to give them more to chew on. That's not like, well, hey, thanks for pricing it. We're going to put pencils down because we're going to wait for pricing and labor to go down. But you guys tell me, when has that happened? Right? That's what everyone's thinking. It's like, look, here's a VE list. We could strip everything out of this job that you want, and we can build this for you. That's not my job anymore. Like that's a Band-Aid. So we have to have more thoughtful conversations in pre-con. And that's really, I mean, I know Martin, you asked like what and how. Like that's the narrative that I see, because I've been in those first meetings. I see how clients respond to this stuff. It's like, it took us 3 weeks to price your job because the tool didn't support our process, right? But if I can do it in 2 days and spend the rest of the time shaping the narrative and give you more options based on your design intent, that's target value design. Like that has nothing to do with the contract type we're looking at. That's just, we should do pre-con a certain way.
Makes complete sense. Okay, so what's the we would maybe save Edify for, actually I'll tell you what, people should go and check out the 4-hour podcast that we've done with Dustin and Mike to understand Edify in detail. And this one we're going to look at the go-to-market side of it. So to my question, maybe let's talk about the go-to-market within Edify. How do you sell the solution?
So I bucket this into 3 categories. It's people, it's process, and tech, in that order, because people have behaviors that dictate the process. That process then has to be supported by the technologies. Technologies last. I said sales is consultative. I've been in the industry, but a lot of companies can do things differently. They have different behaviors. People have behaviors that then bleed up to the executives, all these things, right? So we can't just make people change how they're doing things. So we have to show them, we have to understand and have empathy, right? Understand, be curious, have humility and all this on where their challenges are, right? That's the people piece. They're going to tell us about their process. The companies that come in, and I've seen this in the past, like companies will come in, they'll say, hey, we're going to tell you how to do your job. All right. Construction is a very relational business, and it's a pretty small circle of people, right? And I know it's growing from people coming into the industry, but they will say, go pound sand. You have to understand people's process, and you have to understand the people and what their challenges are. Then you can layer the tech on top of that, right, to actually support it. The point is this: it's less about like what you're using and more about why and how. And I say why and how you're doing it.
Quick break to let you know, if you're getting value from this conversation, we've compiled insights like these into our comprehensive construction tech go-to-market guide. Inside, you'll find the exact frameworks top AEC tech companies use to break past the $10 million ARR mark, detailed case studies from successful exits, and actionable playbooks for pricing, sales team structure, and enterprise expansion. Head to www.bricks-bytes.com/GTM and transform how you approach growth in construction tech. Now back to our conversation.
So that's go ahead.
Yeah, so Edify selling to various types of general contractors, right? Yes. How do you figure out their process, as every one of them probably has some variations of the workflow and processes? How do you figure it out to make sure that they understand that you are the right fit?
Well, in some cases, I wouldn't say even some cases, we have very pointed discovery questions like, what type of projects do you do, or what are your typical contract types, or like pointed questions that could help us kind of align where Edify would kind of fit the mold for them, or at least get them excited. Like we have to do good discovery ultimately. And we may find in that discovery we're not the right solution for them, right? But oddly enough, at least from what I've seen, and again, like just from the industry side, plus working with folks, like not being a GC now, like people do things differently. And even though they do it differently, we map one-to-one first. So yeah, okay, you do bid tabs or scope sheets. We do that. We just call it something different. It's mapping that one-to-one first, and then helping them translate into the solution itself. Right? Does that make sense? Like, like there's different terminology maybe in Edify, but the reality is we're trying to help your client make more decisions, make quicker decisions.
I'm just curious. These conversations are quite extended to like get one-to-one to the to operate the same language, or it's not a problem really in our industry, like for you guys selling to GCs.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it is challenging sometimes because you find that like some folks start in contracting just doing bid tabs, and some folks start in building in a budget, and some folks start in a cost model or something somewhere else. And like, while we have all of those, order of operations is important, right? So like, when I get a conceptual set of drawings, which might be 1 or 2 sheets, I need to create a budget off of this. You're going to be either create a very high level estimate or create a budget or do a cost model, right? Based on your own previous data. But then sometimes like you get more information or sometimes if they start contracting, they're like, I just care how my guys buy it. We just got to buy it out. Here's all the stuff that's in it. Just buy it. Right. But I think that has to start, like, I think this is the challenge in the industry. This is probably where folks that do hard bid work versus negotiated versus they self-perform, like pick the thing that they do. A client has an idea and they want to build something, and it starts there. And there is a data flow from that all the way through a shovel in the ground. And I think that some clients, like as an industry, we also need to inform clients, like just because you're getting a number from 3 GCs doesn't mean you're getting the best value, right? Like we believe we're the right partner for you based off of this, and this, but the other guys are saying the exact same thing. So I think like we have to kind of level set some with the clients, and like our clients, like the clients of our clients as an industry, say there's a better way to do it, but we have to say like the data has to start somewhere, because tell you what, man, the biggest challenge I see in all this is just data integrity. Everyone's like, yeah, we have a database system, or yeah, we use Excel. It's like, what do you want to do with it? We want to compare it side by side. Can you do that now? Not effectively. Yeah. That's not an uncommon thing in this industry.
Yeah. There's a need for a baseline that everyone has.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a need for a baseline in the process too, is my point. Like everyone kind of starts, they start at a different point, but there has to be a baseline before you start.
And your role is to kind of get them there, right? In some respects.
Oh yeah. So I will go sit down with GCs. So I'm based here in Nashville. I go sit down with GCs around Nashville. I've gone down to Birmingham, other places in the Southeast, and I'm really here to get them excited about what we're doing, kind of help ensure we have some alignment, get people excited. Candidly, I get excited about this stuff because I wasn't able to do this in the past, and now we can do it. So like it's not hard to get excited about it. And I think like people get like, no one looks at pre-con and says, yeah, pre-con sexy. Like it's numbers and it's like quantities and prices and costs, right? That then shape a narrative. What I want, I get excited because I want people to not have to do this stuff over the weekends, right? Like I was going back and forth to Arkansas, like I was going for a week at a time when I was on my first job. I'm not saying we don't have to do those things, but like we prioritize so much work. We spend 40, 60 hours a week doing work things, when in reality we're doing that. You either live to work or you work to live, right? Yeah. And like you have to, there's a tension between those. And so like we have to find the place that increases quality of life in both spaces.
Agreed. So general contractors, Trey, how do you get onto their radar? How do you penetrate these people's lives and be like, buy this, buy Edify?
And
who do you go for? Like who do you start with first? Like in the buying cycle?
Yeah.
And also, if maybe you can share in case you don't know someone, and in a case that you know someone or you were introduced.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, there's definitely, again, I said there's relational business. So like I've worked with a lot of folks over the last, 12, 15 years in construction. I'll at least speak to the Southeast and some of the Northeast that, you can reach out to and have conversations. But they may not all be GCs. They may be trade partners too, right? So I think it's partly relational. And then from an outbound standpoint, like, LinkedIn's the gold standard for a lot of that stuff, and trying to find folks where you went to school together or you worked at the same company or something like that, right? You're kind of using the tools to like leverage the connection point. Yeah. Cause like the first part is, do you like each other? Yes or no? Check, right? Like if we don't, I'm not saying we won't do business if we don't like each other, but if you can't find some sentiment of connection, right, then it's unlikely. Like I'm not going to send someone a canned email. I don't think, while sales tries to be very formulaic, oddly enough, sales is very challenging to make a formula with. I can't tell you the number of KPIs or metrics, that kind of stuff. So like this is the output, because people aren't formulaic. Yeah. They're just not.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So mostly, you say through LinkedIn, and are you going
mostly,
to
mostly through LinkedIn.
Are you going to chief innovation officers or someone else within the team?
Are you looking for champions?
I'm conflicted on this a bit, because I do believe that you can do like bottom up and top down in anything. Like that's literally the balance beam, right? So, but again, if I look back at people, process, and technology, the reality is I stand like a point of entry is a point of entry, but I stand a better chance talking to people who are actually doing the process, because that's the direct impact I'm going to make, right? And it's going to change their lives first. Now, those folks are tasked with reporting information up to leadership in their companies. Mm-hmm. They don't care how the tool works. They just need the information to make fast decisions, right? So like, I like for the solution we provide, like, yeah, leadership can be in there doing it, but like you have to have a good foundation, a good data foundation, a good utility foundation. Like, can I do my job? Period. So I think like, yeah, we talk to CIOs, we talk to everyone. We're not going to say, let's not have a conversation, but from like a, speed to market and like speed to value standpoint, it makes a ton of sense to talk to end users, like estimators, director of pre-con, manager of pre-con, that kind of stuff.
And the people that are using them, you would classify them as the champion of the sale?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, there's all kinds of roles here, right? If you're looking at the sale, all the things that's been put out in sales strategies around coaches, champions, advocates, all these things. Mm-hmm. I think the end users are the champions. But that doesn't mean they're always champions. They may just be like, I just like the way I do it. And that goes to like partnership. Sales is not as simple as, hey, here's our ICP. We're going to go after just dump them all on the top of the funnel. Just get them all, right? There is a sentiment of who's the right partner, because some people are fine with the way it is. And that's totally fair. When I have conversations with folks, my hope and desire in that is that they will see passion and conviction around the challenges in the industry, so that it may prompt them to want to do something differently. And I've seen some of that, but there are cases where they're like, what we got's fine. Great. It's nice to meet you. Look, if like, it sounds like at some point you're going to want to step into the future of pre-con, like let's connect then. Yeah. And it's great, right? Like you have other priorities right now. So I just think it depends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another person who mentioned speed to value, I think only Anton was someone who hasn't mentioned this in our go-to-market.
He loses a mark for that in the go-to-market champion contest.
Yes. So can you elaborate a little bit on this? As actually that was the term that I first time heard when we started exploring go-to-market. I don't know about you, and have you heard that before?
Yeah. I think another term that you might have heard mine is time to value.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Which we have discussed.
Speed to value, time to value.
So just tell us how important it is, and like from your point of view.
Oh, it's really important. I mentioned the kind of the spectrum. We're seeing the pendulum kind of swing back. At least it should. You know, again, I point solutions. We are not a transactional solution. That's just a fact. It takes time. It's not a light switch. It takes time to spin up an estimating solution or pre-construction solution, right? Our speed to value is in our people, because we have an awesome CS team and awesome technical sales folks that like come alongside. And I don't mean across the table. I mean, like, we are on the same side of the table going towards a goal, right? These are your objectives. And that's the consultative piece, right? But the time to value is how quickly can we get folks into Edify doing like production estimating? Are they building estimates, right? It's not just, oh, they logged in, right? Like, it's more process over product. Like, how are they adapting to the process and using it?
Makes sense. Okay, what does a successful go-to-market look like in construction tech?
Yeah, so I think aligning deeply with the industry around the pain points, that's number one. And then when you have these conversations and you're kind of landing and then you're expanding, that's just the motion. It's just like, there are enterprise sales too, but in general, it's a land and expand, especially in this industry, because like, Rome wasn't built in a day, and because it's a very disruptive, it could be a disruptive solution if you just like cut off one solution and estimating one day and then boom, go to the next. I would not advise that. So I think it's mainly like indexing on the challenges and the pains and having empathy and being curious. I actually was talking to a buddy at another GC at Birmingham. We were just talking shop a little bit, and he said, yeah, it's like, you talk to a vendor and you don't need to come tell me how to do my job. I need you to understand how I'm doing it so you can help me evolve my process into the next thing, right? And so I mean, so much of it's that, right? Like, it's like success. If you said what makes this successful, it's like, oh, we're going to be, $100 billion, whatever else. Like, that's not what measures success. It's like, it's the people around you and the people that like make the prospects and customers successful in their work, and then you will be successful. But you have to index on their pains and their challenges, and then like pretty much hold their hand and go through it with them. And I've sat in people's offices here and like, yeah, so like let's go through it. And look, this shouldn't be new news, right? Like, you're going to be aligned and you're going to be not aligned. There's going to be gaps in your product that don't meet their need. That's a fact. I sit with people because I want to see where they see the gaps, not just across a camera like this, but like in the room, you can feel the tension on like, oh, I'm having a hard time with this. Like, can we make this more intuitive? Yeah. If it was more intuitive, you wouldn't need me here. Like, we're going to gradually make things more and more intuitive, just like every company, right? But to me, it's those things that make it successful from the go-to-market side. It's like really partnering with those our industry peers, the people first, and then gradually like evolve into the whole business.
You mentioned a few times that KPIs are not the best way to track things, but as a sales director and a leader in sales in your organization, how do you? Is there any KPI that you track?
Oh yeah, I'm not saying we don't track KPIs. KPIs are useful, but what I have seen historically, and again, this is just my limited experience, we use KPIs as a bet versus like using them to improve. And it's like, in some cases from day one, didn't make calls today, didn't make all your calls. And no, it's like, that's not what makes people successful. It's like, that may not be their skill set in the first place. Like, how do you make them successful, right? So like from a BDR side of it, it's like, okay, yeah, calls, right? From an AE side of it, it's how many demos are we booking? How many are converting to pilots? So the other piece is like, how do we be successful and go to market? We can expose people and show people like what the product is, but they're ultimately going to say, can I put my hands on it? Like, how do we make that happen? And then we go down that path with them. We do that too, right? But like, I think you have to go that route with them. But yeah, sorry, I lost track of the question. I lost my thought.
No, KPIs. You was getting passionate about it.
So like, I think that like there's KPIs we do track, certainly, like paid pilots, conversions, things like that. And I think they're useful especially as you start a business. but you're building the plane and flying it at the same time. So like you don't just jump in a company and say, well, you didn't make enough calls this week, you're going to be on a PIP, right? You have to kind of coach and help people improve. And I find that a lot of sales leaders don't do that effectively. They it's not just about a close. There is a close rate. Absolutely. There's that, but it's equally about the engagement, the quality of the engagement in the funnel before it closes.
Curious.
I think that's a key difference.
Yeah. Trey, you mentioned something. Maybe I'm going off piste a little bit here. So Martin, you can butt in if you were going to say something else. But you mentioned sales leader. How much of your role is actually outselling versus coaching and mentoring and actually like spearheading the sales effort? Just briefly on that.
Probably, I don't know, maybe 50-50, 75-25, something like that. So I'm out. I'm kind of supporting our team right now, but then I'm also working with some larger companies as well, or engaging a lot of these larger accounts more strategically. But as we grow, like I'm sure things will ebb and flow and things will evolve. But right now I'm spending some time, like I think you want to talk about tools a little bit too. Like we have our CRM and all these tools. Like I'm spending certainly some time doing those things and ensuring that we have the foundations needed to scale and grow. But if you're asking where I would prefer to spend my time and enjoy, I would say, the relational piece, like talking with people and spreading the word.
Always be closing, like we said before we hit record.
That's right. Yeah. Dude, I literally, there's folks I've worked with, or actually haven't worked with, like folks in my community who have nothing to do with this industry. And when I tell them what we're doing at Edify, just in the way that I kind of, share that with them, they're like, are they hiring? I mean, come on, man. Like, it's not going to work. Right. But that's the point is like, always be closing, but really always be evangelizing too. And like getting people behind, like getting people behind your mission. Because ultimately we're just missionaries and we want to bring people along for the ride.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted to ask about sales cycles. How long is it in terms of, in a case of Edify, like what's the average length and how to decrease it successfully?
Oh, it's like you've been in my head the last 6 months, Martin. So I would say we're not a transactional solution, but I say on average like 45 to 60, maybe 70 days. Especially if you're doing like a paid pilot or some kind of pilot of that nature, right? So it can take time. I think we have been trying to figure out how do we compress that timeline down, and really it's just go back to the speed to value or the time to value. The reason I've been sitting with folks is because I want to see in person, like where are the holdups, where are the hangups, because I've been in Edify now for 1.5 years, 2 years, and like I can show you all the things, but that doesn't mean someone who's just a first time user comes in and can use it out of the box. I mean, they can, right? But it's got to be relatable. So our process on the implementation side, whether it's a paid pilot or even a totally new customer, we have a kickoff meeting. We have this process of like meeting once a week or twice a week if they'll let us, because we would like them to be production estimating within 2 weeks once we have a kickoff call. That's the ideal state. And if we can do that, we will shorten the length of our sales cycle.
And this
the reality is like, oh, go ahead.
No. Sorry. I'll jump in a second.
I was gonna say the reality is like it's a pretty low bar for time like your sales cycle if you're looking at estimating solutions, because like we're cloud, I could spin something up for you guys in 2 minutes and say, here, go to town, right? That's the easy part. The hard part is then making it relatable to your business, because this is how we estimate, or this is like here's a few estimates that our market's like tough. That's really the gravel that we have to work through.
So the baseline is necessary,
that's a really tricky workflow to actually penetrate. I think we maybe even discussed this with Dustin during the.
Maybe the answer is to give software to universities like Autodesk used to do, and every graduate only knows how to use a software.
Are you in my head right now? I'm going to. So I graduated.
Give him a job, Trey. Give him a job.
Here's this. I I'm going to Auburn next week to speak in a couple CIT classes, construction technology, which that's what gave me the fire for all the tech and construction. So like my old professor, I'm going to go back and talk to a couple classes, right, and then go see some other professors, whatever else. Like, I'm not saying they should come out and say, yeah, you have to use it, but it is, again, bottom up, top down. Like, this is the future of pre-con. It's not just, I mean, PlanGrid did PlanGrid EDU as well. We don't have that for Edify yet, but I do think there is tremendous value in educating younger generations for the tools that are going to be out there when they get there.
Yeah. Let's talk about, sorry, Brian, you go.
Yes, yeah, if I can very quickly on this. So small accounts versus large accounts. What thoughts have you got with regards to go-to-market to these two types of accounts?
Small accounts, usually fewer people part of the decision-making process. Larger accounts, there could be some bureaucracy in the organization or something like that, where like we have to get this approval to this approval, right? And so I think I worry less about the small accounts because we're going to kind of go at the pace they need to go, and generally they're not as slow moving. I'm probably up at night more for the larger accounts where it's like there's so much strategy involved, and like how do you partner well with people so that you can ensure you have all, not just the end users, the champions, but the decision makers in the room as well. And some companies are so large, candidly, they just don't move that fast. And I'm actually okay with that. Like, on one hand, I am, because that gives us time to work with them, to consult with them, and kind of show a different way of doing pre-construction. Like, that might be slightly different than how they do it, but give them the results they want from like cost modeling or data standpoint, or like we're going to win more work with these clients, increase our hit rates, things like that. So I think it just depends. I think there's just going to be more strategy around the larger accounts. And it's just kind of nuanced. Like, every company's not the same in that fashion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the large accounts sound very tricky, and there probably really is no, I guess there's best practice, but ultimately there isn't really like a rule book of how you sell to these people, because like you say, apart from the frustration that runs inside your head and how to deal with that, maybe there's a good book on mindfulness or something that you can follow.
Yeah.
Maybe if I can ask very quickly on the large account, does large account in case of Edify means 6-figure sale or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it could be 7-figure too at the end of the day if you look at the whole organization and kind of how they function, right? So like, you have some construction companies that have PMs and they do estimating as well, or the estimators own the project. You have some that have estimators. Like, because of the structures, it's going to be a little bit different, but yes, you can. Yeah, definitely slice it.
What is in your go-to-market toolbox, should we say? Let's keep it to construction.
Yeah. So we use PandaDoc for proposals. We have our CRM, which is HubSpot right now. We have, I mean, like I feel like a lot of companies, we have our Google stuff, I guess, but like from the, I guess, platform side is focused on sales is more HubSpot and PandaDoc at the moment.
How about, are you guys experimenting with AI tools?
Some, yes, but at least speaking to the Edify product itself, we have a large language model that can map estimates to our master format. For example, we call it Rosie. It's Rosetta. We call it Rosie for short. But so we have that. I think we have more of a vision for AI in products. It's actually an interesting question. I like AI for the utility that it can have on your business. I think that so many companies now are just like throwing it out there just to throw it out there. We see value in AI in our solution, but we haven't built those things specifically into the solution at this point. And I think so many companies just see AI as like, yeah, we have to have that. It's going to make our job easier. It's like, well, that's not how it works. And someone actually said like, AI is going to build our pre-con solution. I was like, dude, show me that. Show me that.
I don't know about that. Yeah.
So, yeah. So I wouldn't say we're not opposed to AI. We're just being thoughtful about how we kind of roll it in. We have an LLM right now, but that's kind of it.
Got it. How about ways of charging? How do you figure out the pricing for customer?
I love that question. So the pricing should somehow be directly correlated to the value you're providing. The lowest hanging fruit is like price per user, which is probably every SaaS company at this point. There's some that do revenue, right? And I'm very much conflicted on the revenue model, but at least on the price per user, we do monthly active user, which is like, it's kind of the spinoff of price per user and focuses on the user actually using the tool in the first place. So you're adding value. So we price it that way, and we still do it in like chunks of like up to 10, up to 25, that kind of stuff. And then there's different price points we negotiate from there. And I'll say this too.
Yeah.
I'll say implementation is important. It's very, very important. I will say with point solutions, it was less so because it's easy to just jump in and use it. There is a tremendous amount of value for implementation for our solution and for these like, integrated solution platforms. That if you don't do that, like you're not going to be successful. So there is we do have some implementation costs, which are there for a reason.
Yeah, makes sense. So you guys charge for that separately, which follows suit, I guess. How about?
Do you want to change subject, or you're still on pricing?
No, it's on implementation, and the demoing. How much at the point of like is your typical process sale, a product demo, pilot? Do you go to a pilot with people?
Yeah, I mean, the first calls we have, whether it's me or AEs, is we're doing an intro and demo call. Get to know them for like 10, 15 minutes and then spend 45 minutes. At the end of it, it's like we're trying to kind of round out based on the conversation where we need to go. And then we may have to see more of the product from there. But we've had some cases where we have the demo and, hey, we're ready to buy, let's go. Or can we pilot it or whatever else? And so we have just the whole spectrum of things. That it just depends.
I was going to say, how much at the point where a product goes from demo through to pilot, how much involvement is there from a sales perspective during a pilot stage? Because ultimately you are still selling at that point, right?
You are, but the weird part is, so like a traditional salesperson is not going to be that guy or gal that's like getting them in the solution, showing them how to use it, like actually implementing. Because the reality is, a pilot, we're mini implementing at this point. We're going to go ahead and start the implementation, and we're just going to extend that into when you become a customer, right? So yeah, sales is still involved to drive towards the objectives and the outcomes to get the deal closed. But so much of that success is not just sales. It's customer success. It's our technical sales folks. It's everyone kind of coming together and getting them through that 8 to 12 weeks or whatever that time frame is, so that they come out the end of it like, yeah, this is great. We love this. Let's go ahead and we need this many licenses.
How to price the pilot?
So we do it as it would be like your implementation cost. So the really cool part is you pay for a pilot. We're not charging for users necessarily in some cases, but like say you paid for a pilot. When it comes to your actual contract with users, in some cases, you've already paid for implementation. So it's already like, you're good. I will say this though as well. You could probably imagine if someone's like, hey, we have 100 estimates we want to get in here, and they're all in Excel, and we have 10 estimators. You guys tell me what you think that would look like. Do you think it's going to be a nice organized version of, here are all the estimates and they're all structured the same way? Or this big old rubber band ball, and you're like, great, I got to figure this thing out now, right? So like, to be fair on the implementation side, one thing that we are doing, it's like I think this is the nugget. It's like our ability to bring, to kind of bring order to prospects and customers' chaos is extremely, extremely valuable and important for us. So we have to know what we're kind of jumping into. If they're like, yeah, we got 100 estimates, like, well, let's see those estimates, because it could be that we need to have more implementation here.
And in terms of pricing, is there any way or room for negotiations? As speaking with larger general contractors, very often they say that they negotiate the pricing with technology providers. Most of the time, actually, feels like.
Yeah. If you talk to anyone in sales, there's always room for negotiation. In fact, look, I'm always happy to negotiate. But that said, I'll say this: pricing is only a barrier to moving forward to the degree that the solution itself offers you utility. If it doesn't offer you utility, the price of that thing will never make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But if it offers you utility, it will make a ton of sense, because you're going to start looking at, oh, I had one person tell me, you're telling me that it can do this. That's going to save me 2 days of work on the one project. All right, look, I didn't put that in your mouth. You just said that to me based off of two sentences, right? Like, those are the things that we're focused on right now. But yeah.
Okay. Shall we go into what makes a great salesperson?
Sure.
What do you think, Trey, the top traits that distinguish the best people in construction tech sales?
And apart from never take no for the answer.
Apart from what?
Never take no for the answer.
It's the secret of mine success.
Of course.
Yeah.
Limited success, but yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. So aside from that, I would say, like, the typical things around, like, being motivated, having gas, and just showing initiative is really important. What I look at when I'm talking to folks is, like, I mentioned I was talking to someone and just, like, not in the industry. And they're like, can I join Edify, right? Like, if I have that same conversation with someone looking to sell the solution, I would hope that I'm going to see the same, like, impulse of, like, yeah, I want to join. Like, that sounds awesome. And they're not looking at it from the standpoint of, like, I'm going to make a ton of money. I mean, yeah, that's part of it, but, like, there's an output. They're looking at it from the standpoint of, I'm going to be able to have a very deep impact in this industry and serve other people. That's what's important to me. And that's what I want to be important to them. The other stuff will come. If we do the right things, the other stuff will come. I just want people to put, again, people, process, technology. The people are first for a reason, right? A business doesn't buy a solution. People buy a solution.
And how important is it to have sales folks within the construction industry versus from outside? Does it make sense to have people from outside at all?
Martin, you're setting me up. I mean, I'm biased on this, right? Like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense to have folks from the industry. I think the question is, like, does that mean that the industry people can always sell? And I think you can go back and forth on this. You can debate on this all day long. There are people who can sell anything, and there's people who can just sell things in a specific industry, right? Mm-hmm. I am not one of those guys that's just going to go sell anything because I have no experience in those other industries. I have no this and that. Like, I don't have the conviction behind it, and I've not experienced it. I think that you can have both. I personally lean towards folks with construction experience because that's just been my MO in the past. That doesn't mean that if you're not coming from the industry or don't have that specific experience, you can't add value, because I've also worked with folks who have been awesome at their jobs and haven't had the industry experience. They just, like, the empathy piece is the key here. Like, if they talk with enough customers, they will develop empathy for those customers and help them solve problems, period.
Mm-hmm. So for those who are less experienced in construction space, maybe they are junior and they've not done so many jobs on site, they just don't have this experience. What are the ways to fill these gaps?
That's a really good question. As far as, like, getting more experience in construction?
As far as being more relatable, yeah, which means having more experience.
Yeah. Talk to people who are older than you and smarter than you. Talk to people who are younger than you. Maybe they're smarter than you, maybe they're not. I don't know. But talk to people across different generations, right? And, like, learn how to communicate effectively, and form an interest in helping them solve problems. And, like, if they're working in a company and it's not the right experience, go seek out those experiences, right? I'm not suggesting you should leave an industry. Like, here's the thing. For me, I grade things on a scale of 1 to 10 of impact. How much impact can I have in this? When I was in the industry, I can have impact for that company. When I'm on the solution side of the house, I can have a much deeper impact across the whole industry. And it's not about me though. It's about the people that we're serving who can actually go home on time or go to their kids' baseball games or pick whatever reason you want, right? It's empowering those things so that you're indirectly building positive culture, both at the workplace, right, for those companies and outside of work. So yeah, that's kind of where I land.
Okay. Last few maybe for me would be if there was one piece of advice, tough question actually, that you wish you had received when you were starting in construction tech sales, what would you wish that would have been?
Yeah, I think you always want to like control the variables. So like one thing I tell is like we have inputs and outputs and control, and some variables are controllable and some are not. And I think defining what you can control is really important, or at least understanding what you have some influence over and what you don't, because you're going to have a deal that comes in. You're like, oh, this is going to be ripe. It's going to be great. And then they go a different direction. They ghost you because we're people and we're not like we're creatures of habit, but we make rash decisions sometimes too. We just do what we want to do. And so I think like understanding that like that's going to happen, because at first when it starts happening, you're like, God, this sucks. You just don't feel great about it. But like, it's not as much a you thing because you can't control those things, right? And so just understanding that like you can have an influence and you can be a champion for the thing, but it may not be the right fit for everyone, or people are just going to do their own thing. And so just finding the right partners is really important. And that's kind of like I've come to that place now. Like again, I want to partner with the right people so we can solve the really hard problems. But there's like that's not. I feel like when you get into sales, that's not kind of where you spring off of.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so the last one from me would be: what is the right moment for founders to get a sales leader on board?
So at least at Edify, I didn't even join Edify. Actually, when I joined, I was a Suffolk tech employee because of our solution spinning out of Suffolk. So it was pretty early on. In fact, our first offsite, we were in Boston. I think we all just kind of got COVID and flew back home pretty much, which kind of stunk. But yeah, I mean, I think you have product and you have vision for the product. If you have a product, something that you can sell, I think it's worthwhile. Like it's worth bringing a sales leader on that can kind of grow into like leading the sales for a company. Probably even process, but like, I think I was employee 5 here at Edify. I was later on at PlanGrid. I don't know when Bill Smith was kind of the initial. Bill's awesome, by the way. He was the initial sales hire, I believe, at PlanGrid. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I don't know. I think early enough along when you have something that you can put in people's hands to bring them to help evangelize. Like I want you to go evangelize and get people excited about it. Be the hype man or the hype woman, right? When you're ready to do that, to me, that's when you bring that person on. But they have to be the right personality for the right fit.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Okay. Trey, I think we're swiftly out of time, but thank you for joining us. Is there any kind of initiative that you guys are running at the moment? Are you hiring? Anything like that?
Yeah, so we're going to be hiring some this year and even next year. As far as the hiring plan, I can't speak to that specifically right now. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at on that front. Other than that, we're looking to talk to every, like I mentioned our ICP. We're looking to talk to a lot of general contractors who are really trying to, like figure out the puzzle of pre-construction with their clients, essentially, right? So, yeah.
Sounds good. Mine, when the job openings come out, Trey, will you send the application link to Martin?
I'll send it to both of you guys. Yes.
for sitting inside your head.
We very expensive, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hey, look, you can always negotiate, right?
And first, focus on value, then pricing. Okay.
That's right. Yep. That's right.
Cool.
Okay. Trey, thank you very much, and hope to see you in November.
Yes.
As we'll be visiting Boston.
Nice. Yeah. I'll have to talk to Dustin Mike about that. But yeah, that'd be great.
Cool. Okay.